Thank you for joining tonight's Master of Journalism info session. We begin the session with a brief introduction. The graduate program director will talk about the program, and I will continue with the admissions and the funding. And the end, we will talk about answer your questions. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the land that the Toronto Metropolitan University is located in downtown Toronto. Toronto is in the dish with one spoon territory. The dish with one spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. I invite you to check out the link here to learn more about land acknowledgement and why it's important to us. Okay, so we have the program director, Marsha Barbo, joining us tonight. And for the program administration team, myself, Inini, my colleagues, Marnie Gerbet and Tanisha Boyle. You will get a chance to work with them once you're in the program. And then we have the manager of the office administration for the graduate programs, Daniel Garcia, joining us tonight. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing so Marsha can do a quick intro of herself, and I will share the screen when you begin the presentation. Hi, Marsha.
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to give you a sense of the curriculum, what you can expect over the 2 years that you're in the program. And I see Michelle Wong, I see you're here. You were in the session, the grad session recently. So for you, this will be a bit of a recap. And let me tell you what you can expect. So when you start in the program, as you probably know, it's a 2-year program. The first semester, we get you out in the field right away. So the first semester, which is the fall of year 1, thanks. You start with covering the city, which is a journalistic course where you start to learn about how to cover the courts, how you cover an urban center. And one of the advantages of the program, of course, is it's in downtown Toronto. So you really have access to a lot of resources. Another course, reporting and data methods for journalists. Most of these are self-explanatory. But you'll learn about data methods that help to make you a good journalist. Urban politics and society for journalists, law and ethics. So those are the courses that give you some kind of foundation in the first semester. And then if we can move to the second slide, we'll move from fall to winter. There, it's more hands-on. So these are the courses: producing the news. There's a digital journalism studio because there's a lot of emphasis now in the journalistic sphere. There's a lot of emphasis on digital journalism, online journalism. Narrative journalism ties in with longer form features. So magazine journalism is a good example of that. And then innovation and entrepreneurship in journalism, because we often talk about journalists now being their own brand, because so many journalists are freelance. They're not necessarily working these days for the Globe and Mail, the CBC. So it is less traditional, and having that entrepreneurial edge is really helpful to people who are entering the field, and really all journalists. So next slide, please. And then the summer. Now the summer, the internship, it's a 6-week internship. And in many ways, I think this is the most valuable part of the entire program, because this is where you get to say where you'd like to intern, to get a sense of what it's like working in the industry. So it is a course, it's not a paid internship, but this is where you get experience. So we've had interns go everywhere, to the mainstream organizations, to the CBC and Global, the Globe and Mail, the Star. There is an internships coordinator who works pretty carefully with everyone, and we'll discuss where you want to be and how you're going to get there, basically. And then we start the master's research project. Now, the master's research project is the equivalent to a thesis in other graduate programs. So you will be developing a journalistic project, and it will be at the level, the caliber, where you could actually broadcast it, you could publish it. So you think about something you're really interested in, and whether it's digital, it's a podcast, it's radio, it's TV, magazine, print, newspaper, you think about that. And this is where you start to develop your journalistic project. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thanks. Fall. Okay, so now you're in fall of year 2 and the leaves are turning. And this is where you go into a masthead. So you go into a newsroom masthead, which simulates a newsroom, and it's quite intense for 12 weeks, or a narrative masthead where you're working on a full magazine, the Review of Journalism, and you're working on that for a full year. If you take the newsroom, which is 12 weeks, you get to take 3 credits in electives. And if you take narrative, where you're working on the magazine, you take 1 credit. And usually that corresponds to 1 course, but not always, because some courses, I teach a documentary production course, for example, which is 2 credits for graduate students. But even then, lots of people who take narrative masthead are also taking the documentary production workshop. So you can define it as a course, basically. And you've got a range of advanced specialization electives. So these are some of them listed, such as TV documentary, investigative reporting, health and science journalism. They're not all offered at the same time, but some of them are always offered. So these are the sorts of choices that you'd have. And then you continue on working on your master's project in a workshop. And you're also doing a pass-fail course in editing. And that's online, and that's an essential editing course. So let's move to the winter, please, the winter slide. Okay, so your final winter, this is where you're working really hard to get your master's research project completed, because there is an April deadline, a deadline at the end of April, and you've got a pitching and branding masterclass. So if you want to pitch your project, for example, this should give you tools to do so. And the specialization, the advanced specialization electives continue. So that's a little taste, and there will be time for questions afterwards, but that's what the curriculum looks like. So that gives you a sense of it, I hope. I do want to say a little bit more about the major research project. I had mentioned this, but this is how it's actually defined. So a substantial and original work of journalism and showing mastery of whatever medium it is. So it could be multimedia, or it could be all the media that I mentioned. And you can read this, but students are encouraged to adopt innovative approaches that will reach audiences in new ways and the subject matter and methods adopted in the project should reflect the students' awareness of journalism's role in civil society. And that's a really interesting question because journalism is changing so fast and the perception of journalism is changing so fast. So you will have a chance in classes to reflect on what is journalism's role in civil society. And that's evolving almost by the day. So thanks for that slide, Elaine. So that really wraps up an overview of the curriculum, but I'll be happy later to address any questions that you have.
Thank you, Marsha. If you have any questions for Marsha, you can type in the Q&A or chat, and I will go through the admissions and funding, and we will answer your questions. Before I begin, I'd like to talk about Yale School of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, short in YSGPS. YSGPS oversees all the graduate programs, including administration, admissions, marketing, promotion, and scholarships. I think some of you are already familiar with the YSGPS website. It has tons of information. If you have any general questions about official transcripts, English language proficiency, or documentation uploading portal, you can reach out to gradhelp at torontomu.ca. If you have any specific questions about the program, the curriculum, the internship, the major research project, or the statement interest or portfolio, you can reach out us to the program email mj@torontomel.ca. I want to talk about application deadlines. We have a domestic deadline, which is the first consideration for January 20, 2025. We strongly suggest you to submit your applications by this deadline. The advantages of a submitting application by this date is if you are eligible for certain scholarships, we're able to include your admissions application for competition. That's sometimes in February and March. After January 20, we still accept applications until the program is full. For international applicants, we have a priority consideration. Deadline is December 1st, next month, first day. If you can submit a complete application by this day, we are going to review international application right after this date, and we are aiming to issue out offers in the third week of December, just before the Christmas. However, we may continue to keep the application portal open until January 20, 2025, depending on the number of applications we receive and the number of offers we issue out. If the program is full for the international applicants seats, we may close the international application portal. Depending on a number of applications we receive and the offers we issued out. Very important for international applicants, keep the priority consideration deadline in mind. For the application process, we have a two-step process. Step one, you need to submit an online application form through the Ontario University Application Center. Short in OYAC. The application form asks you to fill out all your post-secondary education backgrounds, your personal status, and also the two referee information. The reason here is to begin the step one process ASAP, so you can provide as much time possible for your referees to receive the email from the TMU after you complete the step one, so they have the information about how to submit a reference on your behalf. After you complete the application, there is a fee with 2 to 3 business days. TMU will reach out to you with email with online identity information and the student number, so you can create your uploading portal with TMU, so you can begin upload your required documents. So the earlier you start the step 1, the earlier you give your referees more time to write your reference. Admissions requirements. I think most of you are already familiar with the admission requirements if you have studied the program website. Basically, we have 2 components for the admission requirements. The first one is academic. We're looking for a 4 years bachelor's degree for the last 2 years of your cumulative GPA with a minimum of a B, equivalent of the TMU 3.0 out of 4.33. No matter what institutions you come from, graduate admissions will calculate your cumulative GPA for the last 2 years and based on your institution's GPA scale and then convert to TMU standard. For the non-academic requirements, the first piece, very important, it's like a cover letter, the statement of interest. We're looking for about 500 words. We want to learn more about you. What's the reason you want to study in the program? What kind of education backgrounds and professional experience or volunteer experience that prepare you to be a competitive candidate for the program? What kind of major research project you want to work on once you're in the program, and what do you want to do after you graduate from us? So a key information for the statement of interest is highlights of everything that make you a strong candidate for the program. Along with that, we want to see your resume. Again, all of your post-secondary education, professional experience, volunteer experience, highlight any experience, awards, or accomplishments here to showcase that you're a good candidate for the program. We ask for 2 letter recommendations. Preferably it's from academic, so you can reach out to your professors, supervisors. Ideally, when you begin the step 1 process, you have already reached out to your referees. So they are not surprised when receive an email from the TMU to submit reference on your behalf. If for some reason you cannot reach out to your professors, supervisors, you can provide one professional letter of reference. We just want to remind you, make sure that you remind them to submit a reference that focus on your skills. For example, your academic skills, your written skills, communication skills, research skills, critical thinking, analytical thinking skills, for example. So again, the earlier you start step 1, you provide as much time as possible for your referees to provide you a better reference. Key information here is you can provide your statement of interest, your resume, talk about the program you're applying to, your project, what you wanted to do after you complete Master of Journalism with your referee. So that way helps them to refresh their memories and to write you a better reference. The last piece is a portfolio. For the portfolio submission, we strongly suggest you to submit any journalistic work. So we have a number of points that we want to highlight. You can check out the detailed portfolio submission under the admissions on the MJ website. I'm gonna pause here. Marsha, Daniel, let me know if you want to add anything here.
Yeah, I'll add a couple of things. The portfolio is actually really important. So what we're looking for because it's a graduate program, we'd like to see some kind of prior commitment to journalism. So having journalistic work in the portfolio is important. You can define that loosely because journalism, as I've mentioned, is changing so much. So if you have a blog, for example, and you don't have other examples of, say, published journalistic work, you could include something from your blog. The only thing we don't like to see is any kind of academic paper. So we don't want, if you've written a paper, for example, for your sociology class, that wouldn't really be a good example to put in your portfolio. However, if you've written an article for the school publication or done something, for the broadcasts, whatever you have at your university, that would be a much better thing to include. For the references, I know it says academic is preferred, and we definitely want one of the references to be academic. But if you've done work for a radio station, for example, if you've done journalistic work, then it's absolutely fine if it's a professional reference. The biggest thing is make sure it's someone, whether they're an academic, whether they're the head of a radio station, make sure it's someone you can rely on to just give you a good reference. We're looking primarily, I have to say, for red flags, because all the references we get tend to be glowing, because you're not going to ask someone unless they're going to give you a strong reference. But make sure that that's the case. Ask as early as possible. People don't like to be asked for letters of recommendation at the last minute. And also, I'd really stress what Elaine said. If you're serious about this, you should get everything in for first consideration, priority consideration, because it will give you a much better chance, and a chance that the program won't be full as well. So let's see, are there questions here? The portfolio cannot be updated. Okay, yeah, Daniel's replying to that one. Okay. Yeah, so thanks, Elaine. I just wanted to add that.
Great, thank you, Marsha. I will continue with the funding. We have admissions awards for every student. You don't need to apply. It's based on your admissions application. We have 3 types. The first one is Toronto Metropolitan Graduate Fellowship, TMGF, value from 2,000 to 6,000. We have Toronto Metropolitan Graduate Development Award, TMGDA. It's the same value from 2,000 to 6,000. We also have Ontario Graduate Fellowship, OGF. This is we have one for the program, is valued at 12,000 for 1 academic year. This one is for 1 top domestic candidate. We also have program awards throughout the academic year. Once you are in the program, we will reach out to you when the application portal is open for submission. We have 2 big external funding scholarships. The first one is Ontario Graduate Scholarship, OGS, and the Toronto Med Graduate Scholarship, TMGS. It's valued at 15,000 for 1 academic year. In order to be eligible, you need to have a A- in each year of your last 2 years of your bachelor degree. If you are eligible, if you applied by January 20, 2025, first consideration deadline, we are able to include your admissions application for competition. And we will reach out to you sometime in February, March for an application form, and then we will include your admissions application for competition. We will have the results in early May. For the second one, it's Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council Canada Graduate Scholarship, short in SHRC. This one is valued at 27,000 for 1 academic year. Same eligibility. A- for each year of your last 2 years of your computer studies. This one you need to apply by yourself. The deadline is December 1st, the first day of the next month. So the same day as the priority consideration deadline for international applicants submit a complete application. So if you are eligible, I strongly suggest you to apply. The scholarship is based on your education background, personal status, and your research topic. For those two scholarships, for the second year, we will double check your cumulative GPA for each year, and we will notify you if you are eligible to apply. The program has some facilitation workshops to help you to submit application, write a strong research proposal. Those can help assistance there. So we will reach out to you in the second year. In addition, we have other funding and paid opportunities. For example, if you are familiar with the YSGPS website, we have tons of scholarships and funding information there. It categorized by different categories, and strongly suggest you to check out external awards section. It has tons of information there for the graduate scholarships. It's all based on your education, personal status, and research topic. If you're in the program, you might want to apply as a assistant for the graduate assistant or research assistant or teaching assistant. This is something we different faculty hire throughout the year, usually before the fall term begins. So students would apply sometime starting from July, August. The program will also receive some opportunities from other faculties, and we will reach out to you by email if we receive opportunities like this. The last one is Career Boost. One of the sections on the career section of the TMU, there are some part-time positions there, so you can apply when you are studying full-time when you are in the program. Okay, this is the end of the presentation. If you have any questions about academic curriculum, major research project, internships, you can reach out to Marsha. And if you have any other questions, admissions, submission, uploading portal, any system issues, you can reach out to the program. I'm going to stop share the slides so we can see each other and we can answer some of your questions. Thank you, Daniel. Daniel has been answering all the questions in the chat. You can keep your questions coming, and you can also raise your hand and you can speak directly from your mic. So if that's something you prefer.
I see someone's asking, Jillian is asking about deferrals once you've been accepted. We don't defer accepted candidates to the next year. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Daniel. No.
No, that's correct. Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't do deferrals only on very.
Yeah, okay. And that's a really good question. What makes a statement of interest stand out among applicants? It's a good question, Amira. We want to see a real commitment to journalism. So let us know what you're watching, what you're reading, how your connection to journalism has developed over the years. And I think, you know, if it's just an honest explanation of that, and we can sense your passion for journalism, that really does make a statement of interest stand out. And let's see what else. The resume, there's no recommended length. I'll tell you, we go, when the committee is looking at different candidates, we tend to go to the portfolio as the first thing, and then the resume as the second thing. Oh no, I shouldn't say that. The statement of interest is very, very important. So let's say statement of interest to get a sense of who you are, then the portfolio, and then the resume. So those are the three most important components. The length of the resume, I mean, you know, generally when you're applying for a job, for example, people recommend keeping resumes fairly short. Just give us a quick sense of what you've done, you know, who you are and what you've done. It does not have to, it's not a CV, it's not an academic resume, it's journalistic. So just give us a sense of what you've done and the kinds of part-time jobs you might have had, or full-time if you're coming back to university. But give us a sense of that. How can a program help someone get a sense? Oh, getting a foot through the door, a mainstream Canadian media job. Okay. I'd say the internship is probably the best way, because that literally gives you a foot in the door. So if there's a place you're particularly interested in, you take an internship, you tell the internship coordinator that that's where you want to go. And there have been lots of questions about internships. Just to be clear, they don't have to be in Ontario. They don't even have to be in Canada, depending on insurance. Usually they are in Canada, but we've had the very occasional person go out of the country for an internship. That's what helps you get a foot in the door. It doesn't guarantee you a job, but it guarantees you that an organization will know who you are. And if you, while you're there, if you really go above and beyond, if you go to story meetings and you've got lots of story ideas to propose, even though you haven't been told that that's part of the job description, if you stay late working on, you know, helping out, working on various projects, it's really on you to stand out. So you take advantage of those 6 weeks and that they remember you and that you follow up with them. So I'd say that is the best way to get a foot in the door. Mainstream Canadian media, it's challenging, it's not impossible. We do have people who've been working at CBC. We have people who are working at the Globe and Mail, other journalistic outlets. Usually they are the people who have a lot of drive, who have a lot of tenacity, who persist, who go back, who knock on doors, and who offer something, so that they don't just turn up wanting a 15-minute coffee without having a bunch of story ideas, without being able to say, you know, I've been watching this for many years. Have you ever considered doing this kind of thing? Or value added. So that becomes really important. I'm seeing, are there any questions I'm missing? And feel free to just unmute and jump in with a question. You don't even have to show yourself on video, although we love it when you show yourself on video so we can put a face to a name. But there are many ways to ask these questions, including in the chat, but also just by, you know, audio unmuting.
Great. I saw there is a question from Sarah, hold a journalism diploma from Concordia University. Can you get a credit transfer for some courses? So I want to answer this question. Concordia University, a diploma. Okay, so for in order to get a transfer credit, we have to look at the same graduate level courses. And also we need to look at the course content. So that's something we can look at after you receive the offer to the program. For any other diploma level courses, and that's something we don't accept a diploma level credit. one thing to keep in mind, for any graduate degree level courses, we can look at it, but we also, if this credit is not used for a graduate degree, so which means if you didn't finish a graduate level degree, then that's something we can look at it based on the course content. Feel free to add anything that I missed, Daniel. Let me know, Sarah, if you want to clarify your question. I don't know whether there's a journalism diploma from Concordia University or is a journalism undergraduate degree.
All I would add would be is the rule of thumb is it has to be a graduate course, a graduate equivalent course, and and that course cannot have been used for a different degree. That's the bottom line. So as long as it's a graduate level course and you have not used that course to complete a particular degree or diploma or certificate or whatever it is, then it's a possibility. If you already use that course to complete something else, like a degree or diploma, etc., then we cannot use it as part of the graduate studies policy. In a sense, you cannot double dip the same course for 2 different degrees. That's the bottom line, I guess.
Yes.
So it looks like Julian has a question.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if all of the portfolio pieces have to be published work or if it's preferred to be published work. I don't know if you already covered that.
Yeah. If it's published, that's great. And preferably, yes. If you don't have any published work, you can still submit it. So at least there's something in the portfolio so that your application is considered.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
And just to follow up to that, I think Greg had the same question. And correct me if I'm wrong, Marcia, if they're in the process of submitting something to be maybe published, and maybe there hasn't been published yet, or they're not going to be published, but not yet, it might be a good idea to put a little note on in the description saying this will be published this date, or this is in process publication, something along those lines.
Yeah. So if, for example, if you're at McGill and you're submitting something to the McGill Daily and it hasn't been published yet, just put a note on saying submitted to the McGill Daily, as Daniel says, and that's useful. So yes, you could do that. We want to get a sense that really of 2 things, of your journalistic potential, but also that you're engaged with journalism. So during your undergrad, you took advantage of you did some work for whether it's the university paper or whether it's something bigger than that, but you've done something. So that helps with the portfolio. Other questions?
This is the time for you to ask questions directly to Marcia. If you planning to submit a application, this is time you ask any questions about statement of interest, portfolio. Great question, already ask it, and then a question about CV or any piece of the major research paper, internship. Any questions you have, this is time to ask.
And if you're thinking about it, but you're not sure whether you want to ask it, probably other people are thinking about it and they're just holding back. So it's very low stakes here. Like this does not affect your application in any way. So it really is a chance if there's anything on your mind. How many people are accepted into the program? For domestic applicants, 21, and for international applicants, 3. What do class sizes look like? For the mandatory courses, and those are all the first year courses, the biggest that a class could be is 24. Usually they're smaller than that. So you're not going to be in huge classes, at least for all the mandatory courses. And because a total of 24 people maximum would be accepted, You'd never be in a mandatory class that's more than 24 people. And that goes for the newsroom masthead and the magazine masthead. And some of the classes are much smaller than that. Like right now, in my documentary production course, I have 15 people and they're working in teams of 5 people. So you don't usually get the huge classes. There are some large classes at the university, but they don't tend to be in the graduate program in journalism. It's unusual. For the statement of interest, Tanaz says, I know there are some questions on the website we need to answer. Do we have to answer all of them or they're suggested? Would you rather see a statement follow the questions or one that's more personalized? So yeah, again, these are good questions. You don't have to answer all of them. It's not like someone's, sitting there saying, oh, but she didn't answer question 3. I think it's always better to be more personalized, but it's not mutually exclusive. You can address questions and it can still feel very personal and specific to your experience, your individual experience. Would something like book reviews? Yes. Published in literary magazines be acceptable to include in the portfolio? Yes. It doesn't all have to be, it certainly doesn't have to be all news related. Yeah, and it's not like one would be more valuable than the other. And for the book review, we want to get a sense of how you write and how you think. And a book review is a really good way of doing that. Michelle?
Hi, Professor Barber. So I just wanted to ask, because I'm currently the journalism editor for one of the colleges at University of Toronto. And I was wondering for my portfolio, can I include the written pieces I wrote for in the yearbook itself? Because
Yeah.
that's okay, right?
Yes, say what it is. Make sure it's really clear what it is. But yes, that's
Sounds
just
good. Thank you so much.
okay. Well, you've got my email address, right? You've got all our email addresses. And if you have questions that are academic in nature about the curriculum, then I'm at m2barber@torontomu.ca. You saw on the slide our various email addresses. So if you think of something after this finishes and think, oh, I wish I'd asked that, feel free to zip off an email and we can continue from there. So thank you.
Marcia, I think there's one more question in the chat. Besides the traditional places like Globe and Mail, CBC, etc., where are new grads obtaining employment?
It's a really good question. Because as you know, the traditional places are laying people off. We do have people who are doing podcasts, definitely. There seems to be some market for that. A lot of freelancers. We do have people who've gone into whatever it's called. I don't know, I want to say public relations, but some places call it something else. But because they've got the journalism background, some people do go from the program into public relations with various organizations. We've had people go into the nonprofits, and because of their journalistic background, find ways to use that. So beyond the traditional places, people have created really their own opportunities, and they've had to be entrepreneurial. Let's see. Yeah, no, I thought someone else was asking about that. But it's always, I mean, people say it's tough to get jobs in the industry, but I want to tell you, when I started, it was tough to get jobs in the industry. I remember, after doing an English degree, really wanting to get into television work. And meanwhile, I was working in a kind of communications job for the Canadian Cancer Society. And I was knocking on doors. I mean, really, literally knocking on doors. And it took me 2 years to get my first job in journalism. And it was really worth it. And it was really worth the wait. But I'm telling you this just to illustrate that people are saying it's tough to get jobs in journalism, but it's not necessarily a new thing. And I do think the people I see in the program who are really hungry for it and who really want it are either creating their own opportunities or finding places to land, like a TV Ontario, for example. CTV, sometimes entry-level jobs are as chase producers. So those are the people who are lining up panels. And there's a lot of turnover in that kind of work. Like the CTV morning show goes through a lot of chase producers because they have to be in very early. And it's very demanding work, and they have to book people to be on panels. But it's a very good foundation for other kinds of journalistic work. So people are able to find these opportunities and create these opportunities. And it's not like waltzing into a job. It's not like, you know, you do dentistry and the odds are good that you'll be able to set up a dental practice. You have to want it and you have to go for it. But we are seeing a lot of people landing in interesting journalistic jobs or journalism adjacent jobs. I'm looking at the chat. But that's a really good question. And I know that that's on a lot of people's minds. Nice seeing you, Michelle. Nice seeing all of you. And thank you.
Lots of great questions. So literally last chance for you to ask any questions you have for Marsha. Someone earlier asked a question about the course load. Daniel answered a little bit about usually about 4 courses each term. I shared the link about the curriculum, so you can kind of like map out how many courses, how many hours. Usually every class is about 3 hours. And then in the second year, depending on what stream you are doing, so it's a little bit different with the electives. So that's the way you can kind of like map out and managing how many hours you do need for each class before and after.
I will add to that by saying that people who have tried to work outside of the program a lot of hours have found it really challenging. And by a lot, I mean, you know, maybe more than say 10 hours a week, have found it challenging because even though there are 4 courses, it doesn't sound like much. There's a lot of work outside of class time as well. So it's good as much as you can. And I know it's a hard ask, but to plan to really make the program your priority for the 2 years that you're in the program.
Yeah, thank you for adding on that. Let us know if you have any questions right now at the moment. If not, you have our contact info. You can always reach out to us either through the program email, or you can always reach out directly to Marsha. We have an open house this Saturday in person. I'm going to share that information with you. If you'd like to visit the campus and visit the journalism program on the first floor of the Rogers Communication Center, and that's a great opportunity just to visit us.
And on the second floor, you'll see the studio and the control room and that kind of stuff too. So it's worth it to walk up the stairs as well.
Okay. Just one more thing too, as you're applying, if you have any questions about the process of applying or application, things like that, we also have Lynn runs every Tuesday at noon virtual session. So if you're going through your application, you have any questions about submissions or process or things like that, just drop by and we'll be happy to answer those questions as well. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for adding that on. I was trying to share the link. All right. Okay, thanks very much for your time and to join tonight's session.